evening sunshine here. Also, though, there'll be some patchy cloud as well. Showers fading for most tonight and clear spells developing in the northwest. Warm and humid in the south and east. And that's how the weather is shaping up overnight until tomorrow morning.
Join me, Nana Akua, on Friday, Saturday and Sunday afternoons on GB News. Expect fiery debate and passionate discussion as me and my panel tackle some of the biggest topics hitting the headlines. It's a place for everyone's opinion. No one gets cancelled, but no one gets an easy ride.
Oh, she's on it today.
Be ready for conversations that are fierce, frank, and of course, fun. Every Friday, Saturday, and Sunday afternoon from 4 p.m. on GB News.
We are GB News.
We're right across this great nation.
On TV.
On radio.
On digital. Absolutely everywhere.
We don't talk down to you.
We embrace all voices with honest and civilised conversation.
We are not part of the establishment.
We're one of you.
And we're only getting started.
Join us on GB News,
the People's Channel,
Britain's news channel. Hi there, it's Stephen and Anne.
At breakfast from 6 a.m, you'll always be caught up with everything you need to know, the latest headlines, opinions and debates.
We'll bring you the good news and the bad, but most of all, we're here for you.
Remember, send in your views and let us know what you would like us to talk about.
That's because we're your news channel. And every morning at 6 a.m, it's breakfast on GB News.
My name's Tom Harwood and join me 9:30 a.m. every weekday for The Briefing, your one-stop shop for everything you need to know about what's going on in politics today.
I wonder if this is a deal that might need to be like the biscuits in this factory, twice baked.
Is there not an opportunity here to win out against the extremes?
Tom Harwood, GB News.
What are you going to do about it?
Things should have been done differently, and they certainly are being done differently.
Don't miss it. The Briefing with me, Tom Harwood, 9:30 Monday to Friday on GB News.
Where would you like to go?
Just take me to the studio, please, mate. You know where you're going. I've got a show to do. Friday Night Feast on GB News, 7 p.m. And it's like nothing you've ever seen before. We take a different angle on the week's biggest news stories. The viewers and listeners set me some absolutely mad challenges to do. We tried to rehome a rescue dog. And yes, there's some other wacky stuff in there as well. I feel like I could take on the world. Well, that's that. Friday Night Feast with me, Patrick Christie's, every Friday, 7 till 9 p.m. on GB News. Be there.
Hello, good afternoon and welcome. This is GB News on TV, online and on digital radio. I'm Nana Akua, and for the next 2 hours, me and my panel will be taking on some of the big topics that are hitting the headlines right now. This show is all about opinion. It's mine, it's theirs, and of course it's yours. We'll be debating, discussing, and at times we will disagree, but no one will be cancelled. So joining me today, it's journalist and broadcaster Matthew Stadlen and former Liberal Democrat MP Lembit Opik. Before we get started, let's get your latest news headlines.
Nana, thank you. Good afternoon. It's just gone 4 o'clock. I'm Bethany Elsey in the GB newsroom. Tory leadership hopeful Liz Truss says there will be no second independence vote in Scotland if she becomes Prime Minister. Instead, the Foreign Secretary told the Sunday Telegraph she'll focus on strengthening the union. Ahead in the polls, she's garnering support from party heavyweights, with former Northern Ireland Secretary Brandon Lewis the latest big name to publicly back her.
We've consistently had challenges, whether it's about dealing with free ports, getting the VAT reduction we've seen for the rest of the UK that we can't deliver in Northern Ireland because of the protocol. We've had real resistance all the way through from the Treasury. It was great to see Rishi the other night at the hustings saying that he thought the Northern Ireland Protocol Bill was resolve issues. It's good to see him come to that conclusion now. But the bill is in Parliament and has gone through the House of Commons because of the focus and determination and work of Liz Truss.
Meanwhile, patients who fail to turn up for appointments could be fined if Rishi Sunak wins the Tory leadership race. The former Chancellor promised to reform the NHS, saying he'll introduce £10 fines for those who repeatedly miss GP or outpatient consultations. He told the Sunday Telegraph he wants to do something brave and different. But GPs, such as Dr Mo Kaki, are warning the move could be counterproductive.
A fine of that sort of nature would definitely make people feel more anxious, feel more stressed. We know life events are challenging. We know so many things happen. I think we need to have some flexibility and understanding at this time, especially when people are really struggling and facing a lot of challenge. So I think we need to really be careful with how we try to enforce and improve appointment attendance.
The parents of Archie Battersby have been told his life support treatment will end tomorrow at 2 p.m. The 12-year-old, who's in a coma after suffering brain damage, has been the subject of a legal battle, with his family fighting for his care to continue. A High Court judge ruled it was in the child's best interests to disconnect his ventilator. Barts Health NHS Trust in London says it wants to preserve Archie's dignity throughout the process. His parents are appealing for government intervention. In the US, the number of people killed in floods in Kentucky has climbed to 26. But there are fears that figure will continue to rise, with the governor saying more victims could be found in the debris. He described it as one of the most devastating flooding events in the state's history. President Joe Biden has declared a national emergency. England cyclist Matt Walls has been injured in a crash at the Commonwealth Games. Spectators were also hurt when the 24-year-old Olympic champion flew over a barrier and into the crowd at the Velodrome in London. Walls and 2 other riders were taken to hospital. A Canadian was disqualified from the race for causing the initial crash. And England's women's team has been receiving messages of support ahead of the Euro final against Germany this evening. These are the live pictures from Wembley Stadium, where tens of thousands of fans are hoping to see the Lionesses make footballing history. If they win, it will be the first major trophy for the team and the first football honour for the nation since the men's 1966 World Cup victory. Kick-off is at 5 p.m. Good luck to them. This is GB News. We'll bring you more news as it happens now. Let's return to Nana.
Good afternoon. It's fast approaching 5 minutes after 4 o'clock. I'm Nana Akua. This is GB News. We're on TV, online and on digital radio. Diddums. The Duke and Duchess of Montecito, Harry and Meghan, are apparently not happy with Tom Bower's new book. Not great when the shoe is on the other foot, is it? I don't suppose the royal family were happy with them leaving the fold in the first place, but our dignified Queen gave them her support and her blessing. And in return, they went on Oprah to privately spill their guts on a global stage with a string of inconsistencies and an allegation of racism and all the other stuff that's followed. But now they're getting a taste of their own medicine, and not before long. Whilst the royal family have maintained a dignified silence on most things, others who are not bound by the same cords have not. Enter Tom Bower and his book, Revenge, Meghan, Harry and the War Between the Windsors, which reveals several damning stories against them. The book claims that Harry's friend said that he was nuts when he first started seeing Meghan after she reprimanded them. Apparently, Meghan Markle reportedly feels that the biography is uncalled for. She's said to be furious about the book, calling some of the allegations gut-wrenching, and that they are processing things in this highly stressful situation. One they made themselves with their behaviour. These two are so self-centred, I don't suppose they thought of the stress that they put the Queen under whilst Prince Philip lay ill in hospital after they told their truth on Oprah, and the stress they put on the royal household and the damage they did to the monarchy with the allegation of racism, which, if Tom Bower's book is to be believed, was an innocent comment made about their kids having ginger afros by Camilla. The palace dismissed the suggestion as nonsense. I, for one, will be boycotting Harry's book. I'm not prepared to fund these two. As a taxpayer, I've been doing it for years. I'm not up for it again. We've already apparently forked out 100k in legal challenges because Harry is not satisfied with his security downgrade. No, I want to see this pair stand on their own 2 feet and face the reality of life as we all see it, where people don't bow and curtsy because they feel honoured that you are in their presence. That is the preserve for true royalty, something that I believe Harry did not appreciate and Meghan did not understand. It comes from respect, and I'm afraid I've got none for these two. So before we get stuck into the debate, here's what else is coming up today. In the Great British Debate this hour, I'm asking, should we fine parents for missing their appointments, so fining patients? Tory leadership hopeful Rishi Sunak seems to think so. He's announced that he'll introduce a £10 fine for missed GP and hospital appointments if he becomes Prime Minister. So is this the right approach, or will it lead to less people going to the doctors? I'll discuss that at 4:20. And at 5 o'clock, we go outside the Mafia. I'll be speaking to former Mafia boss Michael Franzese about his time in the world of crime. In 1986, he was sentenced to 10 years in prison on conspiracy charges, but after getting out, he's turned things around, becoming a motivational speaker and writing about his life. Here he is speaking ahead of his UK tour.
Everybody I know in that life, everybody, is either dead or in prison for the rest of their lives. So I feel very blessed to have, gotten through that and be able to have a life and a family, a wife I love, children I love, and a career.
That's not one to be missed. We'll talk highs, lows and lessons learned. What comes next on The Outside? He'll be here live in the studio at 5. And at 4:50, we'll get the latest news from across the globe in Worldview, with Joe Biden testing positive for COVID again. After testing positive on Wednesday, Paul Duddridge will be live from LA at 10 to 5 to bring us the latest. And at 5:20, I'll ask if it's time to pull the plug on net zero. That's all on the way. Tell me what you think on everything we're discussing. You can email gbviews@gbnews.uk or tweet me at gbnews. Right, let's get started. Let's welcome again to my panel journalist and broadcaster Matthew Stadlen and also former Liberal Democrat MP Lembit Opik. Welcome both. Good to see you.
And you.
And welcome back, Matt. I haven't seen you for a while. You got married, didn't you? How did it go?
Yeah, it went very well, thank you. It was very hot. I didn't realise that there was an aircon button I could have pressed in the second church. It was 2 churches and a wedding. Got married in one church, walked down the road to another church for the reception, and I didn't realise there was aircon, so we were all a bit sticky. But it was great fun. It was amazing.
She didn't do a runner?
You would have done, wouldn't you?
For sure. Yeah, well, it's really good to have you back, and good to see you, Lembit.
Yes, nice to be here.
Now, what do you think? OK, Harry and Meg's, they're at it again. I mean, they're complaining about somebody, and this is all allegedly, we always say that just in case, because, you know, these two like to sue people. But, you know, they're apparently complaining about this book that somebody else has written. But don't you think that's pot kettle?
I definitely want to buy that book on the basis of Meghan moaning about it. That's
Revenge,
the best advert.
that one, yes.
Yeah, the revenge one, not theirs. I'm not that interested. Let's be honest, she's not really proper royalty, is she?
No.
She comes from a republic for a start. If she really wanted to be royalty, then she could get the United States to rejoin the United Kingdom. I don't think that's on her agenda. Harry seems to me like the follower in this relationship. I don't know them personally, but I feel that he's been taken for a ride a little bit, and I do feel a bit sorry for him. But honestly, as you said in your monologue, very eloquently, I might add, Nana, you hit the nail on the head. Lots of people are saying, stop moaning about it. You made a choice to go to America. You live with your decision.
Well, there was that speech, weaponising lies for the many. It was like, what? Roe versus Wade in Ukraine. It was like, these things, where are you going from there to there? Well, what do you think, Matt?
I mean, this is quite exhausting, isn't it? This constant to and fro, the tittle-tattle between Harry and Meghan and the royals on one side and the other. I just think it's my overriding feeling right now when the country is facing a cost of living crisis is that there are more important things on people's minds. I feel sad about the Harry thing because it's difficult to justify one or two of the things he's done. I don't think the Oprah performance was his finest moment, partly because I don't think you really call out your dad and your brother in public, right? That's just not what you do. It wasn't well timed either, as Nana has expressed. But I feel sad because he's done a lot for this country. Before it started going wrong, he put his life on the line, as I've said before on your show, Nana. Went to Afghanistan, did something I've never been brave enough to do. and he's done a lot for mental health, something I do work on, and I think that's really helped people to show that you can be successful, you can be a royal, you can be, in some cases, an alpha male or an alpha female and still suffer from mental health. So I think he's done a lot of really good stuff, and I wish he and Meghan together would get out of this cycle.
Don't you feel that he would be behaving totally differently if it wasn't for Meghan?
I simply don't know. I mean, don't forget, way before Meghan, Harry didn't have an uncheckered past. I mean, he went to a fancy dress party dressed as a Nazi. Dressed as a Nazi,
Yeah,
or with Nazi insignia around there, and that was
He dressed as a Nazi.
That was not good, right?
Why would you do that?
And also, he was in the bougie scene, wasn't he? I mean, there's nothing particularly wrong with that. But he wasn't whiter than white, was he, before Meghan came along? So I don't know whether it's Meghan, it's Harry. I don't really care. I just think it's a shame because he has done some really good stuff.
Now, there was that story as well, of course, of Prince Charles accepting that £1 million, I think it was. He didn't do anything wrong. There's nothing illegal. It does seem a bit,
Context here. I wouldn't say Prince Charles trousered the money.
No, he didn't. It was for his charity.
And so in that sense, you can get into a big debate about whether you should accept money like that if you can do good with it. I tend to have a very high opinion of Charles. I think he is a worthy king. I think the country will be well served by him. As far as the Harry situation is concerned, he is Harry's dad. And any father will accept that sometimes you have a prodigal son who goes off, does things perhaps for the sake of love, and then eventually comes back. He's going to forgive Harry.
Of course he'll forgive Harry. I mean, of course you'll forgive your own kids most things.
It was interesting now you talking about whether you should curtsy and bow to the royals and all the rest, specifically in relation to Harry. But I always thought, why should we bow, even to the Queen? Why should we curtsy even to the Queen? For whom, by the way, I have a huge amount of respect.
I'd do that to the Queen.
She's done, and I would, I'm sure, but she's done a huge amount of good for this country. Prince Charles, I produced him for something at Clarence House a year or so ago. And in the past, I would have said to myself, don't bow. Why does he deserve me to bow to him rather than Nana and Lembit or anyone else?
You will do that.
And I bowed.
I bowed. Well, if you want to come back next time, you'll have to do that, Matt, I'm afraid. Now I've heard your objection to it. No, listen, I don't... I'd be more than happy to curtsy for the Queen. That's fine by me. I certainly wouldn't bow or curtsy for Meghan or Harry. I don't think so. I think maybe Prince Charles, if he perhaps gave me an OBE or something like that, then I'd be quite happy with that.
Fishing for an
The Prince Charles stuff is interesting, though, isn't it? Because I know later we're going to have a big ding-dong about climate change, and therefore I was quite encouraged that you seem to be relatively a fan of Prince Charles, given that he's done a lot, in my view, to bring attention to the climate crisis. Park that for a second. But whether or not we agree with the specifics of what he's campaigned for, the fact is he has been a campaigning prince, and one of the things that sets the Queen apart is that she hasn't been a campaigner. And therefore I think we're into really interesting territory when he does become king, because we know, unlike with the Queen, what he stands for on certain things.
The politics of climate change we'll discuss later. You're right, he has been quite brave. Obviously, I have a different view to him. Quite brave in putting that out. But
should he have done?
I don't. I think it's okay, because I think climate change is in a particular category where even the BBC don't bother about balance. So he probably gets a buy-in to the next round on that one. But something you said about the Queen's interesting. I think she is a campaigner, but she does it behind closed doors. Think about the number of times we've seen royal disapproval about the fact that something the Queen has said, for example, about independence for Scotland, being blabbed out in the national press. The way she does it is with her audience, with the Prime Minister. And I think it's not just tea and cakes.
Well, there was that Nick Clegg thing, wasn't there? And there was there various reports, I think once around Brexit time and once around Scottish independence. I think she actually did say, think very carefully how you're going to vote, which was widely interpreted as saying, for goodness sake, keep the union together.
Well, but I mean, look, but you know, that aside, though, let's get back to Harry and Meghan and that book.
You are obsessed with Harry and...
No, I'm not actually. I'm just enjoying... Listen, we've got to have some fun, light and shade here. You know, I could talk about cost of living forever, or I could have a laugh at some people who have no idea of the cost of living. And
that's the idea of cost of human life.
Yeah, exactly. All of it. They basically haven't got a clue about anything.
He has a clue of human life. He put his life... Keep repeating
he
put his life on the line, didn't he?
He may have gone to Afghanistan. Listen, he may... no, I said he may have gone to Afghanistan. And that's all very well. But I'm judging him based on the last thing that he's done. So the last thing he's done is whinging, weaponising lies for the many. So I have to go with that. I can't keep harping back to something that he did many years ago.
You keep harking me out to the whinging, though.
Yeah, because he keeps whinging. He will not stop. He will not stop. So the question is, will you buy his book when he comes and brings his book? No.
I won't buy.
Will you buy his book?
Not at the moment, but what might change it?
Will you buy Tom Bauer's book?
Yes, definitely. That's what could change my point of view. Once I've read Revenge, I may have such a taste for it, as you appear to do.
I'm not going to buy his book.
That I'll see the counter-argument as well, because as long as it's well written, as long as it's got good reviews...
I will not buy his book.
Then I would consider buying it.
No,
I don't
do that, because you're going to fund more of this whinging. You're going to fund more of this whinging.
Tom Bauer is an interesting character.
Tom Bauer
I interviewed Tom Bauer once on stage and found it very engaging. He churns out these biographies like nobody's business.
Yeah, but he did a lot of research on this book as well, so he even went through and...
Meghan and Harry won't be sitting there saying any news of Lembert's purchase. They can live with or without my 15 quid.
How modest of you.
No, they can live without
without
yours, but the point is that if lots of people think that they're mini Lembits, then these people make a lot of money out of it, and I want to put an end to their whinging, because I'm not going to buy their book.
But by talking about him, you're bound to increase sales. You do realise that?
You may think so, or it might go the other way.
Think of how many people watch your show.
People might agree
watch your show,
me.
Nana, and they will now be fascinated by this book, which you have inadvertently promoted.
The warning is revenge will only make them stronger.
Well, I'll be reading Tom Bauer's book for sure, but I certainly won't be reading Harry's. I've made a very
I'll
good
lend you
point
my copy.
No, thank you. No, I won't be reading it. I won't be reading it. I'm not going to give them any more money. I don't want to hear any more whinging from them. I'm just going to enjoy. When they whinge, I'll just do a monologue. Now, if you just joined me, welcome. It's coming up to 18 minutes after 4 o'clock. This is GB News on TV, online and on digital radio. I'm Nana Akua. Now, after the break, it's time for our Great British Debate This Out, and I'm asking, should we fine patients for missing their NHS appointments? Now, Rishi Sunak seems to think so. He announced that if he becomes Prime Minister, he will make us pay £10 if we miss our appointments. So I want to ask you whether this is the right approach, or if this will just lead to less people going to the doctor. Are they micromanaging us? Is this something he should be doing? Should he be looking at the bigger picture? What do you think? Send me your thoughts. Email gbviews@gbnews.uk. Tell me what you think. You can also tweet at GBNews. I've got a poll up right now asking, should we fine patients for missing their NHS appointments? Cast your vote now, but first, let's get some weather.
Looking ahead to this evening's weather, and the UK is looking mostly dry but cloudy, with some showers affecting southern and eastern England. Let's take a look at the details. Across southwest England, it will be a dry end of the day, albeit quite cloudy, though there is a chance of the odd bright or sunny spell throughout the evening. For London and southeast England, for many, it will be a dry evening, though there may be an odd shower that could be heavy. Across Wales, a mainly dry evening with just the odd spot of rain over the hill. Some late evening sunshine, particularly around the west area. Mainly dry across the Midlands to end the weekend, though. There may be the odd isolated shower this evening right in the south. There will be some sunny spells also, especially in the west. After a generally grey and damp day, it's a warm and cloudy evening ahead for northeast England, but it will be mainly dry, with just the odd spot of light rain over the Pennines. It's going to be a fine end to the day for southern Scotland, with a decent amount of late evening sunshine around, particularly in the west of the country. The fine and dry weather is going to continue across Northern Ireland this evening, with plenty of late evening sunshine here. Also, though, there'll be some patchy cloud as well. Showers fading for most tonight, and clear spells developing in the northwest. Warm and humid in the south and east. And that's how the weather is shaping up overnight until tomorrow morning.
We are GB News.
We're right across this great nation.
On TV.
On radio.
On digital. Absolutely everywhere.
We don't talk down to you.
We embrace all voices with honest and civilised conversation.
We are not part of the establishment.
We're one of you.
And we're only getting started.
Join us on GB News,
The People's Channel.
Britain's news channel. Hi there, it's Stephen and Anne.
At breakfast from 6 a.m, you'll always be caught up with everything you need to know, the latest headlines, opinions and debates.
We'll bring you the good news and the bad, but most of all, we're here for you.
Remember, send in your views and let us know what you would like us to talk about.
That's because we're your news channel. And every morning at 6 a.m, it's breakfast on GB News.
My name's Tom Harwood, and join me 9:30 a.m. every weekday for The Briefing, your one-stop shop for everything you need to know about what's going on in politics today.
I wonder if this is a deal that might need to be like the biscuits in this factory. twice baked. Is there not an opportunity here to win out against the extremes?
Tom Harwood, GBNews.
What are you going to do about it?
Things should have been done differently, and they certainly are being done differently.
Don't miss it. The Briefing with me, Tom Harwood, 9:30 Monday to Friday on GB News.
Where would you like to go?
Just take me to the studio, please, mate. You know where you're going. I've got a show to do. Friday Night Feast on GB News, 7 p.m. And it's like nothing you've ever seen before. We take a different angle on the week's biggest news stories. The viewers and listeners set me some absolutely mad challenges to do. We tried to rehome a rescue dog. And yes, there's some other wacky stuff in there as well. I feel like I could take on the world. Well, that's that. Friday Night Feast with me, Patrick Christie's, every Friday, 7 till 9 p.m. on GB News. Be there.
Good afternoon. If you just joined me, where have you been? It's OK. You've only missed 22 minutes because it is 22 after 4 o'clock. We are live on GB News, on TV, online and on digital radio. And don't forget to follow us on YouTube. I'm Nana Akua. So before the break, we were discussing Harry and Meghan, obviously the dismay that they're facing because of Tom Bower's new book. I'm fascinated. I can't wait to read it. Let's see what you've been saying. Lisa says, Nana, as usual, you are voicing my opinion for me and millions of others. I wouldn't buy Harry's book. This couple are nauseating and I'm delighted with Bower's book. So am I. I can't wait to read it. James says, nothing could persuade me to fork out for the dim-witted prince's book, but I've already got Tom Bower's book. Norman says, I agree with you, Nana, about Harry and Meghan, and I think Harry is very unhappy. Well, keep your thoughts coming. It's always great to hear from you. We've got so much coming on in the show. Don't forget as well, we've got a Mafia boss coming in to talk to us about what it was like in the Mafia and also his time now. But it is, of course, time for our Great British Debate this hour. And I'm asking, should we fine patients for missing their NHS appointments? Tory leadership hopeful Rishi Sunak, after his mansplaining, has pledged to introduce a £10 fine for patients missing their NHS appointments. Now, more than 15 million GP appointments are wasted each year, and that, of course, is due to patients failing to turn up or cancel. So what do you think, then? Is that a lot of money going down the pan? Are we wasting time with this? And should we fine people if they miss their NHS appointments? I'm joined in the studio by Elliot Keck, who is the Investigations Campaign Manager at the Taxpayers Alliance. Elliot, we were chatting earlier. I was wondering whether you were aligning yourself to Sunak or Truss, when I hear you say you're not happy with Sunak's tax rises at all.
Well, we've long complained about this government's approach to tax. It's at a 70-year high. It needs to come down. But I think, to be fair to him, this is an appropriate policy to bring in.
Do you think?
I absolutely do think. We at the Taxpayers Alliance have long looked at ways to help ease some of the pressures on the NHS and people missing appointments. It just can't go on.
Well, I was listening to an interview with some GPs, and they were saying actually every now and again when someone misses an appointment, they kind of slightly rely on that because they know that it's going to be oversubscribed. So when somebody misses an appointment, it helps them to get back on track.
Well, I mean, that's fascinating. I mean, it's a bit like some places take too many reservations for the number of seats that they have.
Like the airlines.
Yeah, sure, exactly. Another topical discussion. But, I think in the longer term, we need to start looking at some new ways to inject some funding into the NHS and make it more sustainable. And fining people for missed appointments would be absolutely appropriate. There are some administrative difficulties. Not all GPs will necessarily have the capabilities to manage a booking process, although that in and of itself is pretty shocking, given that almost all restaurants have that ability. But I think this is one very appropriate way to start injecting some more money.
It's interesting because in an article in The Telegraph, Rishi Sunak says that before people told him that it was impossible to do certain things in terms of the management that you've just explained. And he said that people said it would be difficult to manage it, but he said we'll find a way. But it's interesting, he hasn't managed to find a way of getting the money back that he lost. I think that would be a more appropriate way. Do you think that this micromanaging is what the government should be doing when it comes to the NHS?
I think, listen, the NHS, has some wonderful people working for it, but its costs are simply spiralling out of control. Within a couple of years, 44% of day-to-day spending is going to be on the NHS. We are about middle ranking in the OECD for NHS spending, but we're near the bottom for outcomes. So things clearly need to change in the NHS. We need to start getting much, much more value for money and teaching people that the NHS is not actually free, that they pay for it out of their taxes.
But we know we pay for it.
I think a lot of people don't quite reflect on this and don't quite reflect on just how much of their own money that's coming out of their pay packet.
Possibly more expensive than any private medical cover. I mean, that's what the research shows, that we're paying like £10,000 per household for the NHS. I know when I paid my private medical cover, obviously as I got sicker and older, it started to cost me a bit more money, but at no point, I mean, in total, it probably cost me about £2,000 for me personally, and I'm an older person. For a younger person, it'd probably be a lot less. So if it's costing about £10,000 a household for the NHS, that's too much money in any case.
Yeah, and fines for GP appointments, missed GP appointments, will only be the beginning of ways to help start saving money. So there's also things like you could small charges for overnight stays, small charges for GP appointments, full stop, additional charges for prescription, removal of some of the exemptions for prescriptions, and also cutting down on the huge amounts of waste. So I was thinking,
that'd be the first thing that I would do, actually, not start charging people. Excuse me. Whilst I do agree in charging people for coming in, if they're going to do that, the first thing I'd look at is the waste. I'm wondering why Mr. Sunak hasn't gone there.
Well, I think you're absolutely right. I mean, GB News viewers will probably remember back in February, the Taxpayers Alliance revealed about £40,000 wasted on rainbow crossings at NHS trusts. It was well covered by this news station. Yes, I remember. Your take was very interesting. And, but I mean, it's just revealing of the way that some of the NHS middle managers and bureaucrats view the money that come into their bank accounts. They forget that it's actually taxpayers.
Now, Liz Truss, her approach was more, when she did talk about the NHS, she talked about getting rid of middle management and the sort of hierarchy of management. I would like to hear more of that. I mean, do you think that they are sort of missing the point of what we, the public, want?
I think the issue of middle managers is a very difficult one. You want to remove the paperwork and the bureaucracy from the hands of doctors and nurses. They should be spending as little time possible doing paperwork and as much time treating patients. And to the extent the middle managers help them with that, that's very important. But when you look at some of the other staff,
it's a bit top-heavy.
Communications officers, diversity officers,
inclusion.
Exactly, that sort of thing, I think really needs to be cracked down on.
Well, sticks in everyone's craw. Let's have a look. Let's have a chat to Dr. Veena Babu. She's an NHS GP. Veena, what do you make of this then? That people should be charged £10? I mean, at least they start to get a reality check that it is costing them money. So perhaps they'll be more serious about attending appointments.
Thank you for having me, Nana. I actually don't agree on this occasion, and that's because accountability is important, but not at the cost of clinical responsibility. And what do I mean by that? So there was a point in time, maybe when I was in medical school, I used to think that if patients don't come, we should charge them. But as a full-time working GP, if someone misses an appointment, there's often more to the story. A lot of times what I've learned is that they're actually clinically vulnerable. They might be going through deeper issues like depression, isolation. There might be actual transport issues. There might be financial pressures of how they can't get out of their house. And what we have actually done in a lot of our practices, if someone misses an appointment, we make a phone call to see what's actually happened. There was one unique case where somebody was actually collapsed and no one had gone into the house, and we actually had to get an ambulance out there. So yes, you can look at it from one side where it's just, people are missing appointments and abusing the NHS. But actually, I think the question to ask is why? Why are they missing it? I don't think it's just that they're abusing services, but I think there are deeper issues, and giving them knowledge and educating the public about the importance of, attending your appointments is more important than maybe punishing them or kind of disciplining them in this way. So I, on this occasion, have to disagree.
But according to the statistics, there are 15 million appointments. I don't think 15 million people are all collapsing at once. You know what I mean? You can always have, and under Rishi Sunak's plans, he would be saying that you could have one where, your first one will accept, but the next one, if it happens, surely that's quite reasonable for people to start acknowledging that this is costing money. Because I appreciate there's always exceptions to the rule and you can chase it up, but 15 million, and in fact, 4 million between April and January this year. That's a lot, isn't it?
It is. It absolutely is. And I'm not saying at no point should we charge them. Of course, if there are repeated missed appointments, we should maybe open our minds to looking at, if someone misses more than 2 appointments, maybe charging them. But what £10 means to a household living on the poverty line is very different to what £10 might be spare cash to somebody, living in a very different area. And I think people are already under so much pressure with financial struggles. I just think this is one less thing that they don't need to worry about, especially as we're just recovering recovering from the pandemic and coming to some sense of normality, I don't think this is the right way to go directly, that we should find patients. I think we should explore some other options of how we can maybe spread a bit more awareness, education, and then maybe address, okay, after 2 or 3 missed appointments, they might have to go to the back of the queue, or someone else gets an appointment on the day, or, you know, options like that. But I don't think they should be charged straight away.
Not a slight, is it not slightly good if somebody misses an appointment for you as GPs, because you've got a huge queue of people? And I heard somebody saying that actually the GPs actually rely on some people missing appointments to actually function efficiently.
If only that were fully true. So I don't think we rely on that to function. And these days, appointments are not 100% face-to-face, so that's something else to be mindful about. So in a normal clinic, my clinic especially, if I have 7 face-to-face appointments, the remaining maybe 15 will be telephone calls. So if someone doesn't come, it just allows me some more time with someone else on the phone or to catch up on paperwork, yes. But back at a time where all 15 to 18 patients in a clinic used to be face-to-faces, yes, of course, there I can see where the pressure may have reduced. But right now, I don't think that would help us reduce pressure, because that would just actually mean I'd want to know why that person didn't turn up. Are they okay? Are their medications been sent out? So if anything, I think that would add more work.
Well, Dr. Vida Babu, thank you very much for joining me. Thank you for your view. She's an NHS GP. So coming briefly back to you then, Elliot. So do you think that it will be easy, very briefly, you've got about 20 seconds, whether it would be easy for the GPs to recoup this money?
I think if they have a proper system for booking and cancellation, and the key thing that your guest mentioned is the reasons why people might cancel, but as long as you have a clear and easy system to use to book and cancel, there's very few good reasons for missing a GP appointment, so it shouldn't be difficult. Yeah, shouldn't be difficult at all. Well, Elliot Keck, thank you very much for joining me. That is Elliot Keck, he's from the Taxpayers Alliance. You're with me, I'm Nana Akua. This is GB News. We are live on TV, online and on digital radio. Don't forget to get the GB News app. It is completely free, and you can follow all the programmes here on the channel. I'm asking you all about what you think with regard to missing appointments. Joining me on my panel, journalist and broadcaster Matthew Stadlin, and also former Liberal Democrat MP Lembit Opik. And don't forget, at 5 o'clock, it's time for Outside the Mafia. I'll be speaking to former mob boss Michael Franzese, a man who says that he's lucky to have come out of the world of crime alive and as a free man. First, let's get your latest news headlines.
Nana, thank you. Good afternoon. It's 4:33. I'm Bethany Elsey from the GB Newsroom. Tens of thousands of people are gearing up to watch the Women's Euro 2022 final. England will take on Germany in front of a sellout crowd at Wembley Stadium. Well, GB News reporter Rosie Wright joins us from a fan zone at Trafalgar Square. Rosie, hello there. What's the mood like?
Bethany, it is full of excitement, anticipation, and that famous chant that we know so well but sometimes hurts to hear. It's coming home. Kick-off now in just less than 30 minutes. And I want to give you the words of the England captain. She said, "These are the games that you live for." England v Germany. Now, in the last 10 of these games, Germany took home the trophy. The Lionesses are feeling really confident, buoyed by incredible success so far in the tournament. No goals that they've let through. So can they do it tonight? The final kicks off at 5. There's huge anticipation here. Wembley, a sellout stadium, just shy of 90,000 people, and millions of us around the country cheering them on to see if the women can do what wasn't possible a year ago in the men's game. Can they do it? We'll find out. I'll be here on location to bring you updates, what's happening with the score, and particularly how the fans are feeling as the game gets ahead.
Rosie Wright, our GB News reporter in Trafalgar Square there. Let's hope the women can bring it home. On TV, online, in DAB+ radio, this is GB News. Don't go anywhere. Nana will be back in just a moment.
We are GB News.
We're right across this great nation.
On TV.
On radio.
On digital. Absolutely everywhere.
We don't talk down to you.
We embrace all voices with honest and civilised conversation.
We are not part of the establishment.
We're one of you.
And we're only getting started.
Join us on GB News,
the People's Channel,
Britain's news channel. Hi there, it's Stephen and Anne.
At breakfast from 6 a.m, you'll always be caught up with everything you need to know, the latest headlines, opinions and debates.
We'll bring you the good news and the bad, but most of all, we're here for you.
Remember, send in your views and let us know what you would like us to talk about.
That's because we're your news channel. And every morning at 6 a.m, it's breakfast on GB News.
My name's Tom Harwood and join me 9:30 a.m. every weekday for The Briefing, your one-stop shop for everything you need to know about what's going on in politics today.
I wonder if this is a deal that might need to be like the biscuits in this factory, twice baked.
Is there not an opportunity here to win out against the extremes?
Tom Harwood, GB News.
What are you going to do about it?
Things should have been done differently, and they certainly are being done differently.
Don't miss it. The Briefing with me, Tom Harwood, 9:30 Monday to Friday on GB News.
Where would you like to go?
Just take me to the studio, please, mate. You know where you're going. I've got a show to do. Friday Night Feast on GB News, 7 p.m. And it's like nothing you've ever seen before. We take a different angle on the week's biggest news stories. The viewers and listeners set me some absolutely mad challenges to do. We tried to rehome a rescue dog. And yes, there's some other wacky stuff in there as well. I feel like I could take on the world. Well, that's that. Friday Night Feast with me, Patrick Christie's, every Friday, 7 till 9 p.m. on GB News. Be there.
Good afternoon. It is Sunday. A fabulous Sunday as well. We've got so much coming up here on GB News. I'm Nana Akua. We're live on TV, online and on digital radio. Now, back to our Great British Debate this hour. And I'm asking, should we fine parents for missing their appointments? Patients even, not parents. I keep saying parents. I don't know why I'm saying that. Anyway, so Rishi Sunak has pledged to introduce a £10 fine for patients missing their NHS appointments. So far in 2020, almost 4.5 million appointments have been missed. So what do you think? The £10 charge would be part of Rishi's intention to overhaul the NHS and crack down on wasted spending. So what do you think? Should we be doing that? So joining me, let's have a quick look at what you've been saying first, though. Daryl says something should happen to reduce patients missing appointments, but counter to that, the NHS should be held to account when they do the same. The NHS do a lot. Yeah, it's true, actually. So when they don't, if perhaps they miss something or don't do something for you, it should be the other way around. Chrissy says this is a bit rich considering most people can't get GP appointments in the first place. She makes a very good point. Lawrence says it's virtually impossible to get an appointment and difficult to make changes once arranged. Given the nationwide critical shortage of GPs, perhaps the problem doesn't lie with the patients. Well, let's see what my panel make of that. Those are very insightful views. I'm joined by Matthew Stadland and also Lembit Opik. Right, well, I'm going to come to you, Matthew, first, because you look like you want to say something.
Well, just that textual tweet I thought was quite interesting, because we both laughed when she said that it's a bit rich given that we can't get an appointment anyway. But the argument, I suppose, is that one reason perhaps that we can't get an appointment... I can, by the way, my local GPs are great, it's very easy to access. But for those who can't, and it is a big problem, the argument is maybe they can't partly because people are wasting appointments because they're not turning up. My view is quite straightforward, I think. You either have a flat fine for anyone who doesn't turn up, right? Now, you've got a problem with that. One is there might be a very good reason why you haven't turned up, and two is that actually it's not going to be means-tested, and given the cost of living crisis, people are really already struggling to choose between fuel and food. And
let's get on with it.
So then the alternative would be, if you're going to implement this Rishi Sunak scheme, is that you say, OK, well, we'll fine you if you don't meet one of the criteria for a justified excuse. Can you, either of you, imagine how much admin, how much time is going to be wasted? You're going to waste more, you'll take more money and time out of the NHS than you put in.
There's no way we should be fining patients. But the reason that you say parents, by the way, is because we've been through all this with parents who take their kids on holiday during school days. So we've got this culture of punishing parents and patients. If Rishi Sunak wanted to guarantee he was going to lose this leadership, this is the right way to do it. Lots of elderly Conservative voters will now, members will be going, so Rishi, if I'm not mobile enough to hobble down twice because...
Or feeling too ill because you're ill.
...the very condition that I've got, then I'm going to have to fork out 10 quid. And it's not the money so much, not for the Conservatives anyway, it's the fact that, on principle, he wants to punish you whenever you probably had a pretty good reason for going to the doctor.
Listen, I don't support Rishi Sunak on most things, but on this, I don't think it's such a bad thing for people to understand the value of an appointment. But I would draw the line at the point where if there is a valid reason, then I would accept that on some occasions... let me finish. But on some occasions, yes, that I would do that. But listen, we can have the argument about the admin, about anything that you ever invent that is new, that doesn't exist. The admin can be created to do this, and I don't see what the problem would be.
I actually tend to agree that the admin would be a nightmare, but there's a bigger point here. When I was a Member of Parliament, you had serial visitors. They'd come almost every week with the same problem. There were ways of managing it diplomatically. You didn't give them an appointment every week. You'd leave it for a month or 6 weeks. Now, I think doctors' surgeries probably have the diplomacy to do it that way, without all of the admin, that you rightly say is a load of rubbish.
It is extraordinary, isn't it? The idea of setting the patient against the NHS, blaming the patients, blaming us, all of us, for a systemic crisis in the NHS, which is partly due to COVID, partly, in my view, due to underfunding by the last 12 years of Conservative government.
How about overspending and bad spending and wasting money on procurement? I mean, the NHS has wasted so much money. You know, it's unbelievable. And also the government wasting money on things like...
So why blame us? If you're right, why blame us, the punter? Why punish us? Also, the other thing... I'm not
saying that people should... I'm not saying that. What I'm saying is you're not being punished for missing an appointment. I think you should value the appointment. Unless you've got a just reason for why you haven't shown up, I think it's fair enough. One
more thing. So both Lambert and I do agree that the amount of time spent on the admin, costly, inefficient use of resources. But also, we don't want to set patients against their doctors. We don't want doctors to turn into policemen or women trying to work out whether we've got a legitimate excuse to come. You don't want to discourage people going to the NHS. They get more ill, and in the end, they end up costing all of us more.
And the other thing is, those people who are conscientious might be saying, I better not make the appointment because I might not be able to go there because I might be too ill. So all the good people, if you like, will be dissuaded, and the others will say, well, I'm not going to pay it anyway. What are they going to do?
The only unfortunate thing with Rishi Sunak and this idea is that people can't get an appointment, as our viewers pointed out. So people can't get an appointment in the first place. Then if you do eventually get an appointment, if there's some reason why you can't make that appointment, it's very difficult to get another one. So in my view, this does actually demonstrate that Rishi is actually disconnected with what is actually going on. In a good world where it's all working out, where the NHS is running smoothly, then it would be OK to implement something where you could potentially find someone if they don't do the right thing or they don't do it on time or whatever. But in a world where this is in flux and you can't even get an appointment, I don't think that this is a... Although I agree with it in principle, right now it shows this disconnect.
I don't want to break up the recent past too uncomfortably for Rishi, but why did he go to a party in Downing Street? He says he was tricked into it. Well, OK, the idea of having a fixed penalty notice, whatever it was, didn't dissuade him from walking into the room. The Prime Minister, former Prime Minister, he's still Prime Minister, he wasn't dissuaded from playing fast and loose, let's say, on this. What's good for the goose is good for the gander. And I actually think that it's really unlikely this would make a jot of difference, except for those people I mentioned before, who would be conscientious and would maybe skip the appointment, and as you say, then become so ill they're going to cost us a ton more.
15 million missed appointments, though, that's a lot, right, Matt?
That is a lot, and I suspect most people don't miss their appointment because they can't be bothered. I suspect most people miss their appointment because they've got to take their daughter, rush their daughter to an appointment, or they've got a sudden work crisis, or they haven't done their weekly shop, or whatever it is. Yes, we do all need to take personal responsibility, and having this sort of conversation on national TV is helpful, I think, because it will remind people that we do, each of us, owe it to one another to turn up so that time isn't wasted. I just don't think finding people is the answer. The Tory leadership, by the way, you've been following it closely, is fascinating. The most recent absurdity, in my view, and I put my cards on the table, I'm left-leaning, right of Corbyn.
Never.
Left-leaning. It's Tom Tugendhat, who spent his whole campaign on these national TV debates saying, not only have I served, I've served, which is impressive, but also we need a clean break. We need... First available opportunity, when he's pretty sure that Liz Truss is going to win and he probably wants to become Foreign Secretary, embraces her. He said, clean start. She's the opposite of a clean start.
What does that tell you about Tom Tugendhat, then?
Not much, sadly.
Well, he's there to serve.
He's there to serve, exactly, and he will. So there you have it.
Just quick on the appointments. I've had a lot of facial reconstruction, got a terrible accident I had in '98. and I missed 1 or 2 appointments. I must have had 80, or maybe 100 at St Bartholomew's in East London. And what they send you is, they say, if you miss your appointment, this costs the NHS £200. I felt terrible when I missed them. And actually, that does much more to make me feel that sense of responsibility.
Sending out another letter in admin to tell you
a note saying, just be aware that if you don't show up, that's costing the NHS £200.
Send a text message.
No, what they should be sending you a note for is just saying that if you do it again, it will cost you £200. Right, well, this show is nothing without you and your views. Let's welcome our great British voice. It's your chance to tell us what you think about the topics that we're discussing. Right, where should we go? Should we go to Cornwall?
Why not? Let's go to Cornwall.
I'd like to go to Cornwall right now. I fancy some tea. Jonathan Jones, forgotten tea. He's always got a cup of tea. I knew it, Jonathan. What you need is a GB News mug. We're going to get one sent out to you. That's with your next cup of tea. That's a nice mug there.
Some GBT. I've blended up some for you. No, I'll send it over to you.
Lovely. Oh, yes, please. Right, so, Jonathan, what do you think,
in the
then?
UK.
A £10 fee for missed appointments. You get one chance, then the next time you get fined.
Yeah, I think it's a great idea. I was talking to the guys actually growing the tea earlier, and these are busy farmers, the backbone of British farming, if you like. And they say, yeah, if they forget or if they're serial offenders, so I bet you a lot of those people who miss appointments aren't just the first time missing. I bet they book appointments and miss them. There's a cultural thing, I think, that I agree with you on, that is probably at fault here. And I think the idea of petty fines is annoying. It's probably a bit like a speeding ticket. But you know what? I'd rather pay for missing an NHS appointment than I would pay for some sort of 2 miles over the speed limit. I think this is actually a worthwhile thing going to a good cause if it's managed well. But, make sure the technology's in place and make sure it's all in place. I reckon it's actually not a bad idea. I reckon whoever the new Prime Minister is will probably adopt something like this. I just hope it's done really smoothly and isn't too petty in the way it's implemented.
Well, they're quite good at collecting speeding fines off you and things like that, so I think they'll probably do this one quite well, Jonathan. Thank you so much.
No.
That's Jonathan Jones. He's there in Cornwall. Lovely to talk to you. He's our great British voice for this hour. Let's have a quick chat to the panel, because I can see you're bursting to say something.
No, just very quickly, just think all of these things. We said it's a gimmick. Think of all these things through logically. What will actually happen in practice? What will happen in practice if someone is fined and they say, well, I'm appealing that because actually I was doing X, Y or Z and that was a legitimate excuse? What's to stop them lying that they were doing something that was actually necessary? It will not work in practice. It will be a waste of money. It will be counterproductive.
Well, to be honest, I was being generous when I said that I'd give people an opt-out, because personally I really wouldn't unless it was completely serious. But I think that there could be, as the GP said, that she would actually call people up and check. So I'd do the call-up. If they've got no decent excuse, they'd absolutely be fined.
So officious.
It's really not.
We need a department for excuses in the NHS to judge which excuses are acceptable and which are not.
But we don't want people to make excuses. We want people to show up for the appointments ultimately. Okay. So the bottom line is, if people think that there is perhaps some comeback if they don't do it, then they're more likely to do it.
So if there's a rail strike, if that ever happens in this country, you turn up, your train's cancelled, and you miss your appointment. Is that acceptable? What about if
Can we stick to the GPs? That's what we're talking about.
But if you're on the way to the doctor.
Yeah, well, okay.
If a kid throws up in the kitchen.
If you've got to listen. I would give you one chance to do that, and then if there's a
blame culture, I'm not in for it.
It's not about blame culture. It's about the NHS and people who are misusing it. For those who are misusing it, there needs to be some sort of comeback.
You don't become the health secretary. No offence.
I don't want to be the health secretary, but if I was, the first thing I would do would deal with the procurement and also waste of money. I'd start with wasting money, though. I wouldn't start with appointments. Right. So today I've been asking, should we fine patients for missing their appointments? Lots of you have been getting in touch with your thoughts. Rob says this is unenforceable, even if it was doable. Enforcing this would be more costly than missed appointments. Dominic says the fact that the NHS is falling apart is not the patient's fault. This policy implies that it is. Simon says, I think patients should be fined for missing appointments. I also think the NHS should provide compensation when appointments are cancelled or delayed. Well, that's the other side. I think if you're doing it one way, it has to work the other way as well. Adrian says the NHS should charge £10 to make an appointment and then refund it when people attend their appointments. Even more admin. I like the idea, though. Steve says one problem is that when you ring the surgery to cancel the appointment, you find yourself in a telephone queue for ages before you get the answer. Well, that was my point. I'd be happy to go along with it if the actual manpower was there to put it in place and there were appointments actually happening at the right time, but they're not, so I don't think this is the time to do it. So I think Rishi has actually lost touch. There's also a poll up on Twitter today throughout the show asking, should the government fine patients for missing GP appointments and hospital appointments? Shall I ask my panel to take a guess? Matthew, what do you think? Numbers?
Should the government... How many?
Yeah, how many do you think? Yes, they should. Percentage? Quickly, 5 seconds. 5,
5%.
40% say yes.
40% say yes. Well, 57% say yes. They're with me. 43% say no. Well, I think they should. I'm sorry, but I don't mean to be...
No, you did well there, beating 2. It was 2 against 1, and you won.
Of course I was going to win.
Not the first poll I've lost.
Right, you're with me. I'm Nana Akua. I think he meant something by that. This is GB News. We're live on TV, online and on digital radio. Now, after the break, sleepy Joe Biden tested positive for COVID again. He tested negative on Wednesday, but seems to have contracted the virus again. What's been described as a rebound infection by his doctor. Only Joe Biden. Yeah. Well, we'll have the latest from Paul Duddridge live from LA, but first, we'll be back after this break.
We are GB News.
We're right across this great nation.
On TV.
On radio.
On digital. Absolutely everywhere.
We don't talk down to you.
We embrace all voices with honest and civilised conversation.
We are not part of the establishment.
We're one of you.
And we're only getting started.
Join us on GB News,
the People's Channel,
Britain's news channel. Hi there, it's Stephen and Anne.
At breakfast from 6 a.m, you'll always be caught up with everything you need to know, the latest headlines, opinions and debates.
We'll bring you the good news and the bad, but most of all, we're here for you.
Remember, send in your views and let us know what you would like us to talk about.
That's because we're your news channel. And every morning at 6 a.m, it's breakfast on GB News.
My name's Tom Harwood and join me 9:30 a.m. every weekday for The Briefing, your one-stop shop for everything you need to know about what's going on in politics today.
I wonder if this is a deal that might need to be like the biscuits in this factory, twice baked.
Is there not an opportunity here to win out against the extremes?
Tom Harwood, GB News.
What are you going to do about it?
Things should have been done differently, and they certainly are being done differently.
Don't miss it. The Briefing with me, Tom Harwood, 9:30 Monday to Friday on GB News.
Where would you like to go?
Just take me to the studio, please, mate. You know where you're going. I've got a show to do. Friday Night Feast on GB News, 7 p.m. And it's like nothing you've ever seen before. We take a different angle on the week's biggest news stories. The viewers and listeners set me some absolutely mad challenges to do. We tried to rehome a rescue dog. And yes, there's some other wacky stuff in there as well. I feel like I could take on the world. Well, that's that. Friday Night Feast with me, Patrick Christie's, every Friday, 7 till 9 p.m. on GB News. Be there.
Good afternoon. It's fast approaching 54 minutes after 4 o'clock. We're live on GB News, on TV, online and on digital radio. I'm Nana Akua. Now it is time for World View. This is where we get the latest news from across the globe. And President Joe Biden of the United States has tested positive for coronavirus. Now, it's less than a week after he seemingly recovered from the illness, testing negative on Wednesday. And also in US politics, there's speculation that the former Vice President Mike Pence could be getting ready to run to be the Republican nominee for president in 2024, which will potentially be against Donald Trump. So I'm joined by the host of the Politics People podcast, Paul Duddridge. He's live in LA. Paul, Joe Biden, he's recontracted COVID.
Yes, no, he's. This is the double. He's actually achieved two things since he's been in office, and all within the space of a few weeks. Yes, the former VP. We all wish the former VP a speedy recovery, and the sooner he can get back to doing what he does best, the better. Which is pretty much the same as what he's doing now, I think. So, a nation mourns. I don't know how we keep going in this country without the former vice president at the helm.
Yeah,
but,
Kamala Harris.
Yes, anyway,
we've got Kamala Harris there, haven't we, to take. You've got Kamala Harris who can sort of help out when he's sort of not doing well. How's she
when you
faring?
When you have a dream team like Biden Harris at the top of the ticket, what you have, look, we have an embarrassment of riches. We have an abundance of talent. So nobody's going to come to me and tell me that the former Vice President Joe Biden getting sick is going to impede this country's success one way or another. Yes, it's a recession now officially, but it doesn't matter because he's going to be up and fighting again within days. It's I don't know whether he's going for the hat trick on COVID, but we're at 2 at the moment. So, like I said, we all wish former Vice President Joe Biden a speedy recovery.
Well, he said he had cancer. I mean, heaven forbid, I hope that's not true, but he said that. What about Mike Pence, then? He's positioning himself to be the Republican nominee, isn't he?
Yeah. Now, I don't know who's encouraging Mike Pence to go up against Trump. What Pence has done is he's visited Iowa. He has visited Iowa 3 times since the last election, basically. And Iowa is the first of the caucuses. We hear about the Iowa caucuses, etc. They are a great indicator of the way the parties are going to be leaning, and party members are going to be leaning. He's going again in August. But what he's done is he's seemingly actively supporting candidates that Trump is not supporting. So in Wisconsin and Arizona and Georgia, Trump has been supporting gubernatorial, they call it, but candidates for the governorship of those 3 states. And Pence is supporting the Republican rivals of those 3 candidates. So he is actively setting himself up as right of center, but I think he's probably trying to say, I'm a safer pair of hands. But there is no love lost now between the Trump and Pence camps. It's definitely going for Pence is definitely seeing an opportunity to win the hearts and minds of what he thinks are more rational Republican voters.
What chance has he got? Because, I mean, was he popular in any way?
None.
I don't recall him being popular.
None.
I don't know why he's doing it.
None. He's got literally no chance whatsoever. I'm thinking of having a pop, and I'm not even eligible to be president. I would do better. I can't even be president, and I would do better than Pence.
But Nana,
mental. It's the Sunak effect. It's the Sunak effect. It's all very well. You could look really nice in a suit and be friends with senators, but the point is that the members of the party will not vote for you because of what you did. And so Sunak Pence is what we're actually seeing now. That kind of, it's funny how these things echo across the Atlantic. But yes, there's no Republicans will vote for Pence. I'll tell you what's more interesting. Well, for me, what's more interesting, and I've got to give you this one quickly. The chatter coming out of Washington is that Biden is going to resign or have to be pushed out before Christmas, because in November, we're going to end up with a Trump Congress, which is going to start sitting in January. And if they replace him between 2023 and 2024, you actually have to vote for the vice president. So Congress has to vote for the vice president.
God.
So if Kamala comes in, so which Trump Congress is going to ever vote for a Republican VP? So he has to be gone before Christmas if they've got a chance of having an administration with a vice president with Kamala at the top of it. So look out for that story. That's going to be coming up quite soon, just after the. And Trump is going to have to announce before the November midterm elections, because the way the DOJ is wanting to prosecute him for the January the 6th and the overturning of the election kind of nonsense, we're going to have a sitting president with his Justice Department trying to prosecute a presidential candidate, and Trump just loves this.
Well, I'll wait with bated breath to hear all of that. Paul Dudridge, always a pleasure. Thank you so much for talking to me. That's Paul Dudridge live in LA. He's the host of the Politics People podcast. If you've just joined me, where on earth have you been? On the way in the next hour, I'm going to be speaking to an ex-Mafia boss who served time in prison in Outside. That is on the way. If you've just joined me, I'm Nana Akua. This is GB News. More to come in the next hour. So good afternoon, it's 5 o'clock. This is GB News on TV, online and on digital radio. For the next hour, me and my panel will be taking on some of those big topics that are hitting the headlines right now. But first, let's get those latest news headlines.
Nana, thank you. Good afternoon. It's just gone 5 o'clock. I'm Bethany Elsey in the GB newsroom. The hopes of a nation are resting on the Lionesses, who are playing Germany in the Women's Euro 2022 final. The game has just got started in front of a sellout crowd at Wembley Stadium. For those who couldn't get tickets, fan zones have been set up across the country. These are live pictures from Croydon in South London. Well, GB News reporter Rosie Wright joins us now from Trafalgar Square, which is also packed with people. Rosie, what's the atmosphere there like?
Well, truthfully, it's almost very difficult to hear you amidst the commentary behind me and the cheering. The ball has literally just been released. Kick off. England v Germany, and the Lionesses saying this will make history if they manage to secure victory. Of the last 10 finals, Germany took home the trophy. The Lionesses are going into this game determined. The team captain said, these are the games you live for. If England win it, it will be the first time in history. They're desperate for it. Could it be different this time round? Well, they're playing at home at Wembley to a packed out stadium of just shy of 90,000 people. Here in Trafalgar Square, there's 7,000 watching and millions more at home. Both of these teams have performed remarkably in this tournament, both only conceding 1 goal each. As the game progresses, I'll be here to keep you up to date with the score and potentially the post-game celebrations.
GB News reporter Rosie Wright there. We'll keep you updated on that match on GB News. Now, some breaking news this hour. The government has referred Archie Battersby's case back to the High Court for urgent consideration following intervention by the United Nations. It's after the 12-year-old's parents were told by Barts Health NHS Trust that his life support treatment will end tomorrow at 2 p.m. Archie, who is in a coma after suffering brain damage, has been the subject of an ongoing legal battle with his family fighting for his care to continue. A High Court judge had previously ruled it's in the child's best interests to disconnect his ventilator. Tory leadership candidate Liz Truss says there will be no second independence vote in Scotland if she becomes Prime Minister. Instead, the Foreign Secretary told the Sunday Telegraph she'll focus on strengthening the union. Ahead in the polls, she's garnering support from party heavyweights. The former Northern Ireland Secretary, Brandon Lewis, is the latest big name to publicly back her.
We've consistently had challenges, whether it's about dealing with free ports, getting the VAT reduction we've seen for the rest of the UK that we can't deliver in Northern Ireland because of the protocol. We've had real resistance all the way through from the Treasury. It was great to see Rishi the other night at the hustings saying that he thought the Northern Ireland Protocol Bill was resolve issues. It's good to see him come to that conclusion now. But the bill is in Parliament and has gone through the House of Commons because of the focus and determination and work of Liz Truss.
Meanwhile, patients who fail to turn up for appointments could be fined if Rishi Sunak wins the Tory leadership race. The former Chancellor promised to reform the NHS, saying he'll introduce £10 fines for those who repeatedly miss GP or outpatient consultations. He told the Sunday Telegraph he wants to do something brave and different. But GPs such as Dr Mo Kaki are warning the move could be counterproductive.
A fine of that sort of nature would definitely make people feel more anxious, feel more stressed. We know life events are challenging. We know so many things happen. I think we need to have some flexibility and understanding at this time, especially when people are really struggling and facing a lot of challenge. So I think we need to really be careful with how we try to enforce and improve appointment attendance.
At the Commonwealth Games, Team England says cyclist Matt Walls is alert and talking after a crash at the Velodrome in London. 2 spectators were also hurt when the 24-year-old Olympic champion flew over a barrier and into the crowd. Walls and 2 other riders were taken to hospital. A Canadian was disqualified from the race for causing the initial crash. This is GB News. We'll bring you more news as it happens now. Let's return to Nana.
Good afternoon. If you just joined me, welcome. It's just coming up to 5 minutes after 5 o'clock. This is GB News on TV, online and on digital radio. I'm Nana Akua. And for the next 2 hours, me and my panel will be taking on some of those big topics that are hitting the headlines right now. This show is all about opinion. It's mine, it's theirs, and of course it's yours. We'll be debating, discussing, and at times we will disagree, but no one will be cancelled. So joining me today, it's journalist and broadcaster Matthew Stadlin and former Liberal Democrat MP Lembit Opik. Now, still to come, Each Sunday at 5 o'clock, I'm joined by a celebrity, a former MP, or someone who's had an extremely interesting career to take a look at life after the job. We talk highs, lows, lessons learned, and what comes next on the outside. So in a few moments' time, I'll be speaking to a former Mafia boss. Yes, you heard it here first. He spent time behind bars and played a key role in the Colombo crime family. That's next. And in the Great British Debate this hour, I'm asking, is net zero an ideological goal of the liberal elite? Toyota has warned the government it may stop manufacturing in the UK if hybrid cars are banned as part of the 2030 phase-out of new petrol and diesel cars. So I want to ask if the government's net zero policy will come at too high a price for our economy. Email me, gbviews@gbnews.uk, or tweet me at gbnews. Now it's time for Outside, and I'm going to be speaking to a former Mafia boss, Michael Franzese. Now, Michael was born into one of New York's most violent and feared crime families in 1951 and joined the family business after his father was sentenced to 50 years in prison. At one point, Michael was generating up to £8 million per week from both legal and illegal business earnings, earning him the title of one of the world's most wealthy and powerful mafia bosses. Now, proving that you can get out of the perilous mob world, Michael is a writer, speaker and a legal businessman. And I can tell you now, I'm joined in the studio live by former mafia boss Michael Franzese. Michael, thank you so much for joining me.
Well, thanks for having me.
Wow. I mean, crikey, when I see stuff with the mafia, I think, how do you even get out of there? You were born into this. Yes. So what was life like?
It was certainly different, you know, especially for me, because my dad was so high profile, Nona, always under investigation, always getting arrested, going on trial. So I lived through that, you know, through all my younger years. So it became kind of just part of life. You know, but when he drew a 50-year prison sentence back in 1967, went off to do his time in 1970, that's when things really changed, because 50 years was pretty much a death sentence.
Yeah.
And through a series of circumstances, I left school. I was a pre-med student, and I ended up being a recruit and eventually becoming a made member of that life.
Right, so a made member, is that the sort of term?
Means you take the oath,
Yeah,
you know,
you take
you're
the oath.
actually a recruit, you got to prove yourself over a period of time. And then you actually take an oath and become, it's called you're straightened out, and then you become a made member.
So what did you have to do to prove yourself? Can you say?
Well, I always get asked this question on it. Listen, you know, I always say this, the life at times is very violent, and unfortunately it's part of the life, and you have to prove you can handle that. And so I did.
Yeah, well, obviously you can't say any more than that then.
Yes.
Okay. Now so then you proved yourself, you were part of the life. What kind of things did you have to do as part of that? Because obviously you became a drug baron, right? So you made is that right? Is that what you...
What's that?
Were you a drug baron? Is that what you were?
No, we weren't allowed to get involved in drugs.
Right, okay.
The night I got straightened out, I took the oath, they told us, you do drugs, you die.
Right, okay.
And actually people in that life, you know, they did pay serious consequences. You know, for me, it was just all about business and using that life to benefit me in business. And I did that fairly effectively. And then I got extremely fortunate in that I fell into something. Basically, it was a scheme to defraud the government out of tax on every gallon of gasoline. It's something I ran for about 8 years with the Russian mobsters. We were partners. And we were selling 500 million gallons of petrol, gas a month, and pulling down $8 to $10 million a week. And that was the biggest thing that I got involved in. Of course, I was taking care of the family, so it was very lucrative.
You must have been so rich.
Well, I had my own jet plane. I had a helicopter.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, I had houses in 3 states. I had a couple of boats. So I was living fairly good. But at the same time, I was arrested 18 times. I went to trial 5 times. I ended up going to prison for a 10-year prison sentence. I did 8 years on that. I had a $15 million restitution.
What does that mean?
I had to pay the government back $15 million, and then I had $5 million in forfeitures. They took some of my assets. So I paid the price.
But you still got stuff now, though. Did you still end up with a few houses and things, or they literally take everything off you?
Well, they did a pretty good job on me, I'll tell you that. But, you know, able to survive. I walked away from that life because of a young girl that I met, who's now my wife of 37 years.
Yeah.
And she convinced me to make that move. Something you can't do. You're not allowed to walk away.
Yeah.
None of everybody I know in that life is either dead or in prison. Everybody. Nobody survived. We had a lot of wars in our family. Then the government came in with the RICO Act, and they really did havoc on everybody. But, you know, very fortunate, very blessed that I'm sitting here with you today.
Yeah, how did you walk away? Because that's the thing. When you see these sort of movies where you see people have joined the mafia or they've joined the gang, even in this country, a small gang in London or something, very difficult to leave. So you met someone, but how did you actually leave?
Well, I left California. I mean, I left New York for California. Could have never made it in New York. There's too many guys there. And, you know, I knew the life quite well. So I knew what guys would do and I knew what they wouldn't do. So I was able to protect myself. I had a contract on my life. My dad was very upset with me. Kind of went along with the contract for a while. But a lot of people thought I was going to become a major witness because normally when guys leave, they go into witness protection. That's what they do. That's not what I wanted to do. I wasn't looking to hurt anybody. So it took years before everybody understood that, and I was very careful. I changed my whole lifestyle. I didn't go to clubs. I watched how I, you know, took care of myself. So I was able to just outlast everybody, basically. And then when they realized I wasn't looking to hurt anybody, they kind of left me alone.
So even now, is it slightly dangerous for you in a sense? Because there might be somebody who still holds a grudge or a vendetta.
You know, good point. I mean, I can't go back to Brooklyn and say, hey, guys, I want to move back into the neighborhood. That would be like thumbing my nose in their face, and I'm not looking to do that. But nobody's actively pursuing me, you know. But look, you never know, Nana. You just got to be careful, and hopefully that I'm 71 years old.
Are you 71? You look great.
Well, I feel my dad passed at 103, so we have good genes in the family.
Wow, so he went to prison. He got out of prison, and you got to see him.
He did 40 years, yeah. He was released at the age of 100, and he passed away 3 years later at 103.
Okay, so you got to see him properly.
Got to see him. I visited him quite a bit in prison, but. Yeah, but he had a tough life, you know. My family was devastated as a result of him going away. Brothers and sisters, mother, they all suffered. So it was tough. It's a tough life. You know, that's why I discourage all the young people from getting involved.
Yeah, so you've made a good life for yourself now. Well, what did you do when you came out, and how did you set yourself up to do what you're doing now?
Well, you know, I never thought I would be a speaker, but I've been speaking all over the world for the last 25 years. That just kind of happened. I've written 5 books now. I do a lot of, you know, charity work. I work with a lot of underprivileged kids. I do quite a bit of that. And I got a television series being produced on my life that'll start next year.
Wow.
Major production company out in LA. They're doing a stage play based on my life that's going around the world. I'm here developing projects with the host that brought me here, Kaz Evans, and we're developing a number of projects here, and he's very excited about that. And I'm on tour here. You know, we've been speaking at several places. I got 8 more left, I believe. And I just want a shout out to Ella and Wes, who've done such a great job in hosting the tour and organizing it. It's been great. Really great.
And what's the sort of thing to talk about on the tour? Is it more your life or?
I talk about my life. I talk about really what's going on in Mafia, Cosa Nostra, because a lot of things people see in the movies are not really accurate.
Really?
So we talk about all of that. I give some inside information. Then we do a Q&A, and I get asked everything under the sun.
Yeah.
And I answer it, you know, so...
what's the most inaccurate portrayal that you see of the Mafia?
Well, you know, I do think that people think that when you take that oath, that it's an oath to lie, steal, cheat, and kill. And it's not that. The oath of omerta means silence. You're never supposed to even admit the existence of that life. That's what the oath is all about. Now, obviously, we do things that are violent and criminal in nature. But it's not every day. I mean, we're there really to make money for the life, you know, to have political connections, to get involved in business. But, and that's what I did. You know, that's what my forte was, bringing in money for my family.
I was just wondering, actually, what was your biggest regret?
Well, you know, again, Nana, there's people that I cared about and I loved that are no longer with us. And you regret being part of that in some way, you know, being part of a lifestyle that, I will tell you this, I call Cosa Nostra Mafia an evil lifestyle. Now, I'm not calling the guys evil, I was one of them, but I don't know any family of any member of that life that hasn't been totally destroyed. Every one of them, including my own, and not my wife and kids, but mother, you know, father, brothers, sisters, devastated. And any family, any lifestyle that does that to a family is obviously a bad life. And so I regret being part of it, but people say, well, Michael, if you had to do it all over again, would you do it again? The answer is yes, because I did it to help my dad.
And did your dad feel, did he seem grateful that you went through it.
He was grateful and he was appreciative and he was excited when I became part of that life because now we shared another bond between us. So yeah, I mean, he was happy. He wasn't happy when I walked away, but then he even understood that because I told him, Dad, I don't want to destroy my family like our family was destroyed. And he got it because he loved his grandchildren too.
He's got grandkids, of course, yeah. Yes. So now you're out of that. You're getting on with your life. You're doing motivational speaking. You've also got a YouTube channel, haven't you?
Yes. You know, during the pandemic, I had about maybe 40 plus speaking engagements canceled. So my team said, what are we going to do? I said, I'm going to stay home for the first time in 25 years. I'm home for the whole year. They said, no, you got to start a YouTube channel. No, I didn't want to do it. I don't want to do YouTube, social media. But we started it, and it just blew up.
What's on the channel if people were going to go and have a look at it?
A lot of mob stories. You know, we talk about a lot of real stuff. Like the last one we did was on Marilyn Monroe. Was she really killed by the mob? A lot of speculation about that.
What's the deal? Do they think she was killed by the mob?
You know what? There's enough. I'll tell you this. I would bet my house on the fact that JFK was a mob hit. No doubt about it.
Really?
I'm positive because of all I've known and heard throughout my years. Marilyn Monroe, I wouldn't bet the house on it, but everything that I've heard throughout my time in that life, pretty good bet that she was.
You think?
Oh, yeah.
Wow. And what makes you think that, though? What are the...
You know, she had a lot of dirt on the Kennedys that she was about to reveal. She was very upset, and I got this on tape-recorded surveillance tapes. She was very connected with the mob, you know, out of Chicago and Vegas, Johnny Roselli. And the fact that, you know, I don't know if you know this, but they said she overdosed on barbiturates. Next to her bed, there was a bottle of pills. There were 10 pills left, 40 total that were in the bottle. They were gone. There wasn't a trace of barbiturates in her stomach, which means that she had to have an enema. Somebody had to administer it to her. So I don't believe she committed suicide. And they're trying to cover it up. You know, they said, well, there would be no trace because she was a drug addict. She had done it before. That's not true. My sister died of an overdose of drugs. I'm very familiar with what it does to you. And a lot of speculation, a lot of things that I've heard. But again, don't bet the house on it. Kennedy, bet the house on. Marilyn Monroe, enough to believe that there was some devious stuff going on there.
Fascinating, fascinating. So you've got your YouTube channel out there with all these great stories. I'm sure people would love to go and have a look at them. Where will people be able to catch up on?
Just go on YouTube, Michael Franzese. I'm on all the social media channels, Instagram and everywhere else. For the tour, it's michaelfranzesetour.com. I'm going to be in Liverpool on Wednesday and Manchester on Friday. I'm excited about Liverpool. The Beatles. I grew up loving the Beatles. As a matter of fact, I went to their first concert at Shea Stadium in the United States.
Wow.
1964. So
amazing.
I'm excited about seeing Liverpool.
Well, listen, Michael, it's fascinating talking to you. I could listen to your stories all day. Fabulous.
Oh, let's do it again sometime.
Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you, Nana.
It's really good to talk to you. That, of course, is former Mafia boss Michael Franzese. Wow. Listen, if you just joined me, I'm Nana Akua. This is GB News. We are live on TV, online and on digital radio. Coming up, the Great British Debate this hour, I'm asking, is net zero an ideological goal of the Liberal elite? Toyota had said that it may stop manufacturing cars in the UK if the UK bans hybrids in 2030, when the production of new petrol and diesel vehicles is halted. So with jobs potentially on the line, I want to ask whether you think net zero is one of those ridiculous things that is coming at a very high economic price. We'll do that after the weather.
Looking ahead to this evening's weather, and the UK is looking mostly dry but cloudy, with some showers affecting southern and eastern England. Let's take a look at the details. Across southwest England, it will be a dry end to the day, albeit quite cloudy, though there is a chance of the odd bright or sunny spell throughout the evening. For London and southeast England, for many, it will be a dry evening, though there may be an odd shower that could be heavy. Across Wales, a mainly dry evening with just the odd spot of rain over the hill. Some late evening sunshine, particularly around the west area. Mainly dry across the Midlands to end the weekend, though there may be the odd isolated shower this evening right in the south. There will be some sunny spells also, especially in the west. After a generally grey and damp day, it's a warm and cloudy evening ahead for northeast England, but it will be mainly dry, with just the odd spot of light rain over the Pennines. It's going to be a fine end to the day for southern Scotland, with a decent amount of late evening sunshine around, particularly in the west of the country. The fine and dry weather is going to continue across Northern Ireland this evening, with plenty of late evening sunshine here. Also, though, there'll be some patchy cloud as well. Showers fading for most tonight and clear spells developing in the northwest. Warm and humid in the south and east. And that's how the weather is shaping up overnight until tomorrow morning.
We are GB News.
We're right across this great nation.
On TV.
On radio.
On digital. Absolutely everywhere.
We don't talk down to you.
We embrace all voices with honest and civilised conversation.
We are not part of the establishment.
We're one of you.
And we're only getting started.
Join us on GB News,
the People's Channel,
Britain's news channel. Hi there, it's Stephen and Anne.
At breakfast from 6 a.m, you'll always be caught up with everything you need to know. The latest headlines, opinions and debates.
We'll bring you the good news and the bad, but most of all, we're here for you.
Remember, send in your views and let us know what you would like us to talk about.
That's because we're your news channel. And every morning at 6 a.m, it's breakfast on GB News.
My name's Tom Harwood and join me 9:30 a.m. every weekday for The Briefing, your one-stop shop for everything you need to know about what's going on in politics today.
I wonder if this is a deal that might need to be like the biscuits in this factory, twice baked.
Is there not an opportunity here to win out against the extremes?
Tom Harwood, GB News.
What are you going to do about it?
Things should have been done differently, and they certainly are being done differently.
Don't miss it. The Briefing with me, Tom Harwood, 9:30 Monday to Friday on GB News.
Where would you like to go?
Just take me to the studio, please, Matt. You know where you're going. I've got a show to do. Friday Night Feast on GB News, 7 p.m. And it's like nothing you've ever seen before. We take a different angle on the week's biggest news stories. The viewers and listeners set me some absolutely mad challenges to do. We tried to rehome a rescue dog. And yes, there's some other wacky stuff in there as well. I feel like I could take on the world. Well, that's that. Friday Night Feast with me, Patrick Christie's, every Friday, 7 till 9 p.m. on GB News. Be there.
Good afternoon. So it's coming up to 23 minutes after 5 o'clock. If you just join me, I'm Nana Akua. This is GB News. We are the People's Channel. We're live on TV, online and on digital radio. Now, it is time for the Great British Debate this hour. And I'm asking if net zero is actually an ideological goal of the liberal elite. Car manufacturer Toyota has said that it may stop producing vehicles in the UK. That's if the government were to ban hybrid cars from 2030. Now, the government is planning to gradually phase out the sale of new petrol and diesel cars, and that would eliminate some of the hybrid models already on the market. Now, experts have said the car industry is already wounded, and Toyota leaving would only exacerbate the situation. And there are other things as well that if you look at, you've seen the truckers in Canada complaining, and also those in other countries like the Netherlands. The farmers are saying that reaching this net zero target will mean that they will no longer be able to produce the crops and potentially starve the world. So today I'm asking whether the government's net zero targets are bad for the economy, and in fact for the world as a whole, and whether it's just actually an ideological goal of the liberal elite. I'm now joined by physicist and engineer Brian Catt. So Brian, OK, so talk to me, net zero. Talk to me about briefly the science behind net zero. Why are they doing this?
Well, what's unclear to me, as it was, just a little picture. There's a book here you should read. It's by David Mackay, who was chief scientist to the DECC for, let me see now, 2008, 2014. It's called Sustainable Energy Without the Hot Air, and it tells you the science fact about what works and what doesn't. Now, what we do know is that renewables, one of the key statements he made just before he died, that's very young, sadly, from cancer, but his statement was the idea of powering the UK with renewables is an appalling delusion. And he'd done all the sums, written the books, advised the department. The department wasn't interested because the department had an agenda. And none of these things is actually a good way to generate cheap, plentiful energy. It's expensive. It's intermittent in the case of most renewables. And all it does is make rich people much richer because they invest in it, because they've got the money to do that, by making ordinary people poorer by adding the subsidies to their electricity bills by law. They don't have a choice where they go for their electricity. They can't buy from the best, cheapest, most plentiful, unrationed supplier. It's just all put onto the grid, and they don't have a choice. It's just added to their bills. So it is economically regressive. And we've talked before about, obviously, the evidence for this. If there is no climate change that is not accountable by natural sources, which it seems now that it is, then there's no point in doing it in the first place. So, yes, the Liberal elite do very nicely, thank you, because they make money from it and they get more control over people. The other idea about electrification is that although the electricity, of course, is generated somewhere else and emits as a part of that, and you need 100% gas backup for any intermittent renewable so that you can put that up when it goes off. So the point, what is the point?
Well, the point you're making is that actually we need to have an actual other... You're talking about the fact that we offset the carbon elsewhere. I think that's where you were going.
Sorry, yes. Sorry, thank you. I did look. The point here is electrification is a nonsense because all it does is make it more complicated to get the energy from the primary energy source to the thing that needs it. And we spent 100 years, engineers and physicists and people, designing things that did the job best. So they do heating best, gas works best. For transport, liquid fuels work best. And in fact, a modern EV probably only breaks even on carbon dioxide emissions, if that even mattered, at about 80,000 miles, because there's so much carbon compared to an ordinary internal combustion engine. Internal combustion engine is now incredibly efficient, clean, got catalytic converters, all of these things, and the lifetime emissions are quite small because cars are all recyclable, but not EVs. They're made full of rare earths, exploited in the Congo, lots of ravaging of the environment going on there. And the batteries weigh half a tonne, can't be recycled. What else about them? Oh, and the energy it takes to manufacture their chemicals means that you've got to drive it for 80,000 miles before it net improves.
Zero.
So, yeah, and then you need a new battery.
Well, listen, let's see what motoring journalist and transport campaigner Quentin Wilson thinks of all of that. Hello, Quentin. Well, you heard all that from Brian. He's a physicist and a scientist. He says that, this net zero agenda doesn't really sit well in actual fact. Well, what's your view on it? Because I know you're really into your electric cars.
Let me just correct us here. Batteries for electric cars are recyclable. They have second and third lives. The critical minerals in there are so valuable, nobody's going to take them down to the tip. So that's one mistake. We don't have a coal-powered grid here. 50% of electricity created in the UK, on average, is from renewables. So what I'm hearing here is that we should do nothing. We should just carry on building diesel engines and emitting all these particulates and pollutants and just carry on and watch the world burn. The whole point of net zero is that it's an aspiration, that if we can actually aim to reduce CO2 emissions, to reduce particulate emissions, to clean our air, to have energy security and not have to buy fossil fuels from Putin, then these are extremely important and laudable ambitions. But to say, right, we're not going to do anything. We're just going to be a climate denier, and we're just going to carry on driving our diesels, and everything will be all right, and the next generation will just have to, well, hope it's going to be okay. I'm sorry, but that's absolute rubbish. We really do have to make an effort to make our air cleaner, to create new industries. And electric cars are the beginning of the battery revolution. Once you get batteries in electric cars right, you can do ships, you can do short-haul aviation, you can do static energy storage, and you can reduce your reliability on fossil fuels. It's absolutely important that we do this. And Toyota, let's understand this. They don't want electric cars because they've missed the boat. They came out with the Toyota Prius in 1997, and they want hybrids to continue. So they've got a vested interest here, and it's not helpful for them to threaten the government and say they're going to pull out of the UK. It's really, really disingenuous. So look, I'm sorry, it's complete nonsense, and I really cross listening to this stuff, that we should sit here, fold our arms, and just carry on burning stuff. It's not good.
Well, I mean, look, I think what Brian is saying, and we will come back to Brian briefly just afterwards, but I think what he's saying is that the net zero agenda actually is quite disingenuous, and that we won't actually, we won't actually reach the goal in the end anyway. It won't actually do what it's meant to do. So with that in mind,
That's the whole point of this. If we don't try, the world burns. The next generation will be very sorry, and we will be guilty of the most incredible, catastrophic neglect. So that's what it's all about. Whether we actually achieve it or not, that process of trying to get there and trying to achieve these things of reducing emissions and reducing carbon and reducing dependence on fossil fuels, these are the things that matter, not this ethereal goal. So if we give that up, then we will be in history forever held accountable.
But Toyota argues that the ban would actually affect its ability to meet net zero goals. That's what they're saying. I mean, what would you make of that argument?
Sorry, you don't know that they're behind. Other companies that bet on batteries, Toyota didn't. So, of course, it's going to affect them. And look, sales of hybrids across Europe have fallen, not just in the UK. In France, they're down 25%. In Germany, 19%. So why are they taking it out on the UK when other countries, I mean, even China's going to stop using hybrids soon? So look, it's completely disingenuous of Toyota to say this, and I think it's irresponsible. They don't want us to have electrification because they're behind in the game. Tesla are dancing in front of them.
Well, listen, Quentin, it's so good to talk to you as ever. I will take you up on that Tesla ride, by the way. We're getting it planned. That's Quentin Wilson. He's a motoring journalist and transport campaigner. Well, let's come back to Brian.
Yes,
Brian
Brian's writing.
He said a few things there. He said you were wrong about the batteries, and he said that batteries can be reused and so on and so forth.
I'd like him to take me to a recycling centre is the short answer to that.
Well, he said they can be, though, and,
They talked about it. When it happens, I'll agree with him. But where's the evidence for it? There isn't any. What they do is catch fire, and they don't go out. You can't extinguish a battery fire. So if you look in the route, you'll find there's an awful lot of buses have torched their own garages around Europe, and I think they've had one in the UK now as well. And they're not even allowed. They don't allow electric cars in underground car parks in Austria. Yeah, because they burn a hole in the road if they go up.
Because I heard that if an electric car combusts, or you have to actually wait for it to go out because you can't...
You can cool it down with water, so that takes some of the heat away.
But you can't put the flames
out. No, because it's got its own energy. But
there's
to the point...
Very quickly there, you've got about 30 seconds.
Right. Yes, of course you need to transition, but it's not an emergency. The emergency is what's being done to our economy by these measures. We can do it with nuclear, replacing fossil fuels, which is the best way to do it, and we can do it progressively and slowly, and we can burn gas on the way. And one of the other points about this is renewables are a complete sideline, a waste of money, because if you can get through the winter on nuclear in the days when there's no wind and it's dark, then you don't really need renewables because you've got through the worst it can be.
Well, listen, Brian Catt, always a pleasure. Thank you so much for your views. That's Brian Catt. He's an engineer and a physicist. You're with me. I'm Nana Akua. This is GB News. We're live on TV, online and on digital radio. On the way, we'll continue with our great British debate. And I'm asking, is net zero an ideological goal of the liberal elite? You'll hear the thoughts of my panel, Lembit Opik and also Matthew Stadland. But first, let's get your latest news headlines.
Good afternoon, it's 5:33. I'm Bethany Elsey here to bring you up to date from the GB newsroom. The government has referred Archie Battersby's case back to the High Court for urgent consideration following intervention by the United Nations. It's after the 12-year-old's parents were told that his life support treatment will end tomorrow at 2 p.m. Archie, who's in a coma after suffering brain damage, has been the subject of an ongoing legal battle, with his family fighting for his care to continue. A High Court judge had previously ruled it's in the child's best interests to disconnect his ventilator. Tory leadership hopeful Liz Truss says there will be no second independence vote in Scotland if she becomes Prime Minister. Instead, the Foreign Secretary told the Sunday Telegraph she'll focus on strengthening the union. Ahead in the polls, she's been garnering support from party heavyweights, with former Northern Ireland Secretary Brandon Lewis the latest big name to publicly back her. Meanwhile, patients who fail to turn up for appointments could be fined if Rishi Sunak wins the Tory leadership race. Also speaking to the paper, the former Chancellor promised to reform the NHS, saying he wants to do something brave and different, and that the health system shouldn't be misused. At the Commonwealth Games, Team England says cyclist Matt Walls is alert and talking after a crash at the Velodrome in London. 2 spectators were also hurt when the 24-year-old Olympic champion flew over the barrier and into the crowd. Walls and 2 other riders were taken to hospital. A Canadian was disqualified from the race for causing the initial crash. And the hopes of a nation are resting on the Lionesses, who are playing Germany in the Women's Euro 2022 final. For those who couldn't get tickets, fan zones have been set up across the country. These are live pictures from Croydon in South London. The game is being played in front of a sellout crowd at Wembley Stadium. On TV, online and DAB+ radio, this is GB News. Don't go anywhere. Nana will be back in just a moment.
We are GB News.
We're right across this great nation.
On TV.
On radio.
On digital. Absolutely everywhere.
We don't talk down to you.
We embrace all voices with honest and civilised conversation.
We are not part of the establishment.
We're one of you.
And we're only getting started.
Join us on GB News,
the People's Channel,
Britain's news channel. Hi there, it's Stephen and Anne.
At breakfast from 6 a.m, you'll always be caught up with everything you need to know, the latest headlines, opinions and debates.
We'll bring you the good news and the bad, but most of all, we're here for you.
Remember, send in your views and let us know what you would like us to talk about.
That's because we're your news channel. And every morning at 6 a.m, it's breakfast on GB News.
My name's Tom Harwood and join me 9:30 a.m. every weekday for The Briefing, your one-stop shop for everything you need to know about what's going on in politics today.
I wonder if this is a deal that might need to be like the biscuits in this factory, twice baked.
Is there not an opportunity here to win out against the extremes?
Tom Harwood, GB News.
What are you going to do about it?
Things should have been done differently, and they certainly are being done differently.
Don't miss it. The Briefing with me, Tom Harwood, 9:30 Monday to Friday on GB News.
Where would you like to go?
Just take me to the studio, please, mate. You know where you're going. I've got a show to do. Friday Night Feast on GB News, 7 p.m. And it's like nothing you've ever seen before. We take a different angle on the week's biggest news stories. The viewers and listeners set me some absolutely mad challenges to do. We tried to rehome a rescue dog. And yes, there's some other wacky stuff in there as well. I feel like I could take on the world. Well, that's that. Friday Night Feast with me, Patrick Christie's, every Friday, 7 till 9 p.m. on GB News. Be there.
Good afternoon. It's just coming up to 39 minutes after 5 o'clock. This is GB News on TV, online and on digital radio. I'm Nana Akua. We are the People's Channel. Now we return to the great British debate this hour. I'm asking, is net zero an ideological goal of the liberal elites? Now, an example, Toyota, they've warned the government that it may stop manufacturing in the UK if hybrid cars are banned as part of the plans to phase out sales of new petrol and diesel cars. I mean, at one point we were told that petrol and diesel were the way, and now suddenly they've come up with a net zero agenda, which means that those cars will be outlawed. Now, the Japanese car maker is the fourth biggest in the UK, and if it left Britain, there could be widespread job losses. So I want to ask if the government's net zero policy will come at a too high a price for our economy, and is it a price that's worth paying? Let's see what you've been saying. Sue says the man on the street cannot afford this. We will return to the dark ages. There will be the very elite and those who cannot afford the basic necessities. Maybe that's why they want it so badly. I hope I'm wrong. David said the elites have to maintain profit from something, hence all this scaremongering to fix a problem that isn't broken. Hunter says, no, it isn't an ideological goal of the liberal elite. People who say this have no alternative or how to combat human-induced climate change. Interesting. Let's see what my panel make of that. Joining me today is Lembit Opik and also Matthew Stadlen. Right, so I'm going to come to you, Lembit. I'm going to come to Lembit, yeah. Lembit, so... no, actually, let's go to Matt then. Matt,
you can go to Lembit.
After you.
Please.
No, listen, I don't like this manners. I'll decide. Lembit, you go first.
All right. Yes, it is a construct of the elite. I've said it before, I'll say it again. There isn't a climate emergency. Brian Catt, who's pretty learned and qualified to talk about this, can give you all the information, fundamental, simple points. Number one, CO2 doesn't drive the climate. Number two, it is a mechanism to, I think, control us and to try and cause all kinds of authoritarian implementations. And number three, we're wrecking our economy when even if everything I've said is completely wrong, adaptation is cheaper than the ludicrous idea that we can stop climate change, which has been going on for billions of years. In fact, how arrogant is it for humans to think that we can stop it?
I mean, Matt, this is the thing. I mean, it's not an isolated thing. This is a global thing that's happening, isn't it? I mean, you've got the Dutch farmers saying that actually this whole drive to net zero is destroying their business. They're like the second biggest agricultural providers in Europe. You've got other countries. You had Sri Lanka attempting to make an environmental zone. And in the end, the people couldn't stand it, they couldn't stomach it, and they sort of trounced the palace. And, this is not, it seems to be we've all gone along with this, but there comes a point where it's starting to affect people. What do you think?
But there is an argument for national TV shows not to give platforms to climate change to deny it. So, for example, the BBC won't do that. Let me give you...
No one's denying that the climate is changing. Right. We're just saying that it's... Right. See, that's the thing. So let's just get the...
Well, man-made climate change, fine. So there's an argument... Let me make my point. There's a good, strong argument. I think the BBC is right in this, in not giving a platform to people who go against the overwhelming scientific consensus. You'll have a chance to come back on that. I do basically agree with that with the national broadcaster, but I'm happy to come on a show like this to take on views that are aired by Lembit, and to try my very best to convince our viewers, your viewers, that Lembit is wrong. I feel a little bit like we're on the Titanic and I'm now on the top bit, the really highest bit above water, and I've got Lembit sitting next to me saying, well, we're not really sinking, are we? Because we're actually higher now than we were before. So the science is clear. The science is very clear. I can't give you a graph because the camera won't zoom in quickly enough, but I really beseech everyone, after they've finished watching your show, just go and do some basic research, which will show you that of the last 25 years or so, almost every single one of those years has been hotter than the last, has been going up. Almost every single one of those years is way hotter than it was before we introduced the sort of infrastructure and industry that creates carbon dioxide emissions.
I want Lembit to come back.
It's a fact.
No, stop.
It's not a fact.
Lembit.
It's not a fact. It's rubbish. I've been studying this for 44 years, not as qualified as Brian is, but I'm telling you, the medieval...
There's the graph.
The medieval warm period.
Here's the graph.
No one can see that.
Well, you can. Is that false?
That's false.
That's false.
He said it's...
Look, the graph that is going up like this is false.
Let me just tell you...
It's like saying black is white or white is black, Lembit.
Let him speak.
If you're so confident of your argument, then you can answer these questions.
It's not my argument, it's science's
Why
argument.
was the medieval warm period, way before the Industrial Revolution, warmer than the present time? Why was the Roman warm period way warmer than the present time?
The climate has gone up and down.
Celsius
the climate has gone up and down.
In the last interglacial, 130,000.
Well, hang on.
I've answered the question. If your whole argument...
Stop, Lembit. Answer the question. He's asking.
The climate over history, as we know, has gone up and down. We've had ice ages. We've had massive problems with the climate that has affected life on Earth. What's different about this is that it is partly, at least, man-made. And the reason for that is we have something called the greenhouse effect, which is a natural phenomenon which traps greenhouse gases. It traps the energy from the sun. And carbon dioxide, it is factually proven, exacerbates that, which warms the Earth. Let me just say, if we continue, people say the liberal elite. That has to be a conspiracy of the so-called liberal elites of 196 countries. The Intercontinental Panel on Climate Change, 196 countries roughly contribute to that. The overwhelming consensus is that the world is getting warmer, we know that. And not that it's just getting warmer, but we are contributing to it. Okay. So there's a massive conspiracy that somehow Lembit, who isn't, as he said to me in the Greenwood, you'll acknowledge, has not got a science degree. You're not a scientist. You have chosen to say that there is a conspiracy amongst all these scientists who somehow, as Nana says, wants to control that. That is nonsense.
Can I just tell you something? Look, OK, so I was listening to this thing, Professor Ralph Scholhammer, and he was talking about this whole sort of idea of net zero. And he said basically there are kind of four groups, and one of them is that we've got the activists who believe that the end of the world is coming, and they are overrepresented, even though they're not that big a group, a bit like the trans lobby. Then you've got the government and politicians and lots of virtue signalling around that. Then your third group are the big business who obviously want to make profit. And then the final group...
Big business has been dragged screaming, kicking and screaming to the table on climate change.
You don't even know what I'm going to say. saying you're already interrupting.
I'm answering your point.
I didn't ask you a question. And the fourth group, they're the working class who seem to, and those of us, or you and I, who are sitting here, who spend our time going along with all of this until the point at where it comes to the fact that it starts to affect us financially. And the thing that they're offering ends up being more expensive than the reality.
This is why I don't think it's...
So what I'm saying is that there is a belief that actually, and there's a strong belief that finally there's a bit of a pushback against ideological goals like net zero, which don't actually achieve.
May I answer that question just very quickly?
Hang on, I'm not finished.
All right. Yeah.
Which don't actually achieve their goal.
So, it's perfectly possible we won't achieve the goal that we left it too late. I hope we can. This isn't about ideology. This is about preventing the sorts of extreme weather events we had last week, where we had wildfires in London. Ask the Australians. Go to Australia and look at the wildfires. Look at the way that the climate is changing and is impacting everyday lives. We will have, if you think we've got a bad refugee crisis at the moment, a bad immigration crisis at the moment, I can tell you that when the world continues to heat up so people cannot live where they are living at the moment, the number of people who'd be trying to get here on boats will make the number of people trying to get here on boats right now look like a speck in the ocean.
Are you sure they're going to be able to travel across on the boats? By the sound of it, you sound like the world's going to come to an end.
The oceans are going to go up.
Yeah, but I think that the point is that the climate will probably change in any case. What effect we have on it, I don't know.
Right, Matt's argument, what the Greens tend to do is talk over you whenever you try to make facts. Let's see if you've got answers to these 3 points. Number one, the Antarctic recorded its second coldest 6-month period last year in recorded human history. Number two, the polar bear population is at a record level since around 1962, because it wasn't about the climate that was changing, it was the fact that they changed the hunting rules. Number three, you haven't answered the question, why was it warmer in the medieval warm period?
I have.
All over the world.
Question. Shall I answer this question?
This is what they do. This is what they do.
Get to the end and then
have you got to
he hasn't finished.
I haven't got to the end.
He hasn't got to the end.
You could have told that because I was still talking. Now, the question for me, for you to answer is, why was it warmer before the end of the Industrial Revolution in the medieval warm period, when humans were around in the Roman warm period? I put it to you that CO2 isn't driving this. And one of the problems here is it's a highly technical subject. It's not useful to have.
Okay. I'll let you know when you can answer. Now you can answer.
Thank you very much. OK. No, just very quickly, if you want to talk about polar bears, go and talk to David Yarrow, who's the best-selling photographer in the world, who is working very hard to protect the polar bears. In terms of the medieval period, last time I was talking about climate change on Nana's show, we had someone who was championing cars, like Car 26, which was a reactionary group set up to COP26. She was talking about the classical period.
30 seconds.
Temperatures go up and down. The question is, why are temperatures... You've denied a graph, which is fact, black and white. Why are temperatures going up now? The scientific consensus, why should we believe someone who doesn't have a science degree over the world scientist? The scientific consensus is that we are pushing those temperatures up through the release of carbon dioxide and methane. Cows farting, for example.
Oh, come on.
OK, so hang on. So you said somebody who hasn't got a science degree. Brian Catt, he's a physicist and he's a very clever man, and he's not saying that. So there are people who are saying...
Oh, you could get flat earthers. You could get a scientist who come on here and tell you that the Earth is flat.
Why is it that when somebody has a different perspective, you call them a name? You call him a flat earther. You called him a flat earther.
You said I'm not qualified to talk about it.
No, you're qualified to talk about it. You're not qualified to pretend that you are above anyone else because you have a science degree that you don't have.
Sorry, Matt, I respect your point of view, but calling people names like a flat earther just because they've got a different perspective...
That's the equivalent of it.
Yeah, but that's a name.
I'm going to be cancelled for...
No, you're not. No one's been cancelled. No one's been cancelled.
Using the phrase flat earth.
No, but what I'm saying is...
What I'm trying to do is make a point that you can find a scientist who will say almost anything in the world. Not 100% of the world's scientists, not the 100% of the world's scientists think it is man-made. The overwhelming majority do.
But sometimes the overwhelming majority seem to think that black people think a certain thing when they don't. The overwhelming majority don't think
That's about opinion.
No, but
we're talking about science, Nana.
Hang on. So I'm just saying...
Why would you follow the minority opinion? I'm not trying to answer your question.
I haven't asked you a question.
Go on, then.
What I'm saying is just because the overall majority thinks something, or the so-called overall majority, doesn't mean it's the correct thing. And there has to be room for other people to have a different opinion.
And that's why I'm here talking about it.
Without being called...
Yeah, and we could choose Lembett's view if we want.
Nothing without you. Let's see what you've got to say. It's your chance to be on the show. Tell us what you think about what we're discussing. Where should we go?
Grimsby.
Let's go to Grimsby. Let's have a chat with Alan McNeely. He's there in Grimsby. Alan... Hey, Al. OK, so what do you think? Climate change. Do you think that a lot of this net zero is the place of the liberal elite?
Good afternoon, Nana and Lambert and your other guest. I was listening to Quentin Wilson there when he was on, talking about everybody's going to burn. It's more scaremongering across the board. Yes, human existence has an impact on the world, but do I think that we're all going to fry? Absolutely not. Do I think we need the madness of net zero? Absolutely not, because what it'll do is it'll absolutely bankrupt the country. We've known for 40 odd years now that the gas and the oil in the North Sea would decrease, although they're able to get more out now because the technology's advanced and they can pump more out of the wells. So really we've sat back and done nothing about it. There's certainly a place for renewables, but if anybody actually thinks that by 2030 we can all jump in electric cars, I mean, it's just farcical. These are dates pulled out of the atmosphere that have no relevance at all. There are 80 million cars in this country. Well, if we all come home from work and plug our cars in, what's going to happen to the grid? That's if we have somewhere to plug them in. Of course, if you live in a high rise, you're a bit pushed, aren't you? So the whole thing is absolutely bonkers. And it just annoys me that it's all driven by scaremongering. Yes, let's do as much as we can to improve the planet, to help the environment, to reduce things, but we have to do it in a way that is actually manageable and not some kind of arbitrary target. But who made that up? Was it Theresa May?
I don't know.
Theresa May said that we're all going to, we must do this by 2050.
Well, listen,
it's just absolute nonsense.
Well, listen, Alan, it's great to talk to you. Thank you so much for your views. That's Alan McNeely. He's there in Grimsby. Right. That's okay. That was Alan McNeely. That was our great British voice. But, we've got to go to the football, of course, because it's 0-0 at the Euro 2020 finals. The Lionesses take on Germany at Wembley Stadium. GB News reporter Rosie Wright is at the fan zone in Trafalgar Square and joins me now. Rosie, what is the atmosphere like there?
Oh, Nana, good evening. It's noisy, half-time, and there is this sort of anticipation in the air because no goals scored. 0-0. 2 yellow cards given out to England players, and this real raw tension. Can they do it? If England, in the next 45 minutes, can secure a goal and beat Germany, they will make history. But Germany have won this tournament 8 out of the last 10 times. So we wait and see. Let's speak to some England fans who are here with me. Sharon and Kirsty, mother and daughter. Right, there was so much expectation. How are you feeling? Not much has happened. It's been quite scrappy.
Very slow start, but I'm sure we'll get there. I'm sure we will get there, definitely.
You were telling me about the perception of women's football. It's been quite easy to come and get a ticket. Should it have been?
When it was the men's, no one could get a ticket in Hyde Park. Now it's the women's. There's loads of spaces because they don't think they can do it. But we know we can do it. And it's free, yeah. But we can bring it home because the men couldn't do it for us, so we will do it for them.
But how do you feel? Because 45 minutes in, we've had a few chances and we haven't managed to capitalise on that.
We've had more chances than Germany. Yeah, we have had more chances.
So Germany have lost their real star striker. How much do you think that's actually impacted the game?
I would have thought there would have been a goal by now, before half-time. At least one of the teams would have scored by now, but...
People are saying this is going to be a real gear change for women's football. That people are going to take it.
If women win it, we will change everything. Cheers. If women win it, it will change everything. Everything. I mean, like I said, when it was men's football, when they were in the finals, it was all this hype. £10 a ticket, place was packed. Now it's packed, but not as packed as it should be.
There's more of a family atmosphere than there was for the men.
Women here supporting the women.
We'll hear that if you're a woman listening at home.
They have worked to support our women. Power!
Girl power it is. Can they do it? 45 minutes more on the clock. Of course, we might have to go to extra time and dare I say it, penalties. England v Germany. We watch, we wait. I'll bring you the latest here from Trafalgar Square.
That is, of course, Rosie Wright, GB News reporter. She's there live at that wonderful fan zone, Trafalgar Square. Let's good luck to the Lionesses. Of course, it's half-time, so good luck to them. Well, on today's show, we've been asking whether or not patients should be fined for missing their appointments. According to our Twitter poll, 57% of you say yes, 47% of you say no. Well, I've got to say thank you very much to my fiery panel. So who won that one then? Was it you?
I would just finish with an analogy. I'm too heavy, right? I'm 17 stone. I'm, 3 stone heavier than you probably? I need to lose weight. If I don't lose weight, I'm at greater risk of diabetes, cancer. It's going to be, but it's unpleasant to lose weight. It's the same with the climate.
What's the point?
It's the same with the climate. It's going to hurt. I want to fly around the world. I want to see loads more countries. But we've got to make sacrifices so that we protect the world for our children.
Well, just eat less. That'll do it.
I want to lose 5 kilos and I don't want to pay a fine if I forget my doctor's appointment. Bingo.
Bim, bum. Well, listen, guys, it's been a real pleasure as ever. Actually, Matt Stadland, thank you so much for joining me. And also, Lembit.
Always a pleasure.
And as ever, a big thank you to you at home for your company. It's always great to have you on board. Stay tuned on GB News. You can catch up on the GB News app, or don't forget, find out what we're doing on YouTube. I'll see you, in a couple of weeks. I'm on holiday. Actually, I'll see you on Tuesday when I'm on the money. Enjoy your Sunday.
Looking ahead to this evening's weather, and the UK is looking mostly dry but cloudy, with some showers affecting southern and eastern England. Let's take a look at the details. Across southwest England, it will be a dry end to the day, albeit quite cloudy, though there is a chance of the odd bright or sunny spell throughout the evening. For London and southeast England, for many, it will be a dry evening, though there may be an odd shower that could be heavy. Across Wales, a mainly dry evening with just the odd spot of rain over the hill. Some late evening sunshine, particularly around the west area. Mainly dry across the Midlands to end the weekend, though there may be the odd isolated shower this evening right in the south. There will be some sunny spells also, especially in the west. After a generally grey and damp day, it's a warm and cloudy evening ahead for northeast England, though it will be mainly dry, with just the odd spot of light rain over the Pennines. It's going to be a fine end to the day for southern Scotland, with a decent amount of late evening sunshine around, particularly in the west of the country. The fine and dry weather is going to continue across Northern Ireland this evening, with plenty of late evening sunshine here also, though.